This episode of the Beauty by ABIC podcast was brought to you by Ginger and Me by InSkin Cosmetics.
Hello and welcome to the Beauty by ABIC podcast, your online support community for the aesthetic and beauty industry. Here, we are strengthening and unifying the industry through representation, innovation, and education. This is a platform created and dedicated to the aesthetic and beauty industry, valuing unity and advancement. We serve to represent, support, and inspire you by connecting you with industry experts, expanding your knowledge through educational pieces, and bringing you the latest industry news. This is Beauty by ABIC.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for today's podcast. Our guest today is National Education Manager for InSkin, Michelle Shara. Michelle has over 23 years in industry under her belt and is incredibly passionate about holistic beauty, aesthetics, and wellness. Michelle's love of learning and development has led her on an inspiring journey from 14 years working in clinic, both as a practitioner and multi-site manager, through to 9 years specialising in customer experience, business development management, and education. Welcome back to the podcast, Michelle. It's always such a pleasure having you.
Hello, thank you for having me back, Marla. I appreciate the invite.
So welcome. We have a few things to talk about today, but our focus is going to be on neuroaging. So we'll get into that shortly. But my first question for you and all of our podcast guests is, how did you first enter into the professional aesthetic industry? Tell us your story.
I will gladly tell you. Hopefully the listeners don't get tired of listening to this one. For me, I'm one of the lucky ones, I think, Marla, because I fell into this industry at a very young age, purely from passion of all things skin, makeup, brows and beauty. So I was really lucky that I had a direction when I left school. So from the young age of about 16, I knew where I was going and fell straight into my studies, and from there it's just continued. And in our ever-changing industry, it's changed, but been lucky enough to be doing this for quite some time now.
Amazing. Yeah, very lucky, as you said, to be gifted with the knowledge of what you want to do with your life. Lots of people don't find that until later. It's exciting to gain that perspective early on. And so, tell us a little bit about where you first started in industry. What was your first job? What were you initially doing? How was it that you discovered your passion, and what kind of sector of the industries you loved most, and the types of products you loved working with? And how did you get into education?
For me, when I was doing my studies, I was lucky enough to do a private course full time. And it was without a doubt a must-have that when you were studying back then, that you were to go out into the industry and get a part-time job. And so I did. So I was studying full time, and I was lucky enough to gain a job within a local clinic where I would work nights and then weekends, all your extra spare time that you had. And you know what? It wasn't the glamorous start that I think most people think is going to be in the industry. It comprised of cleaning wax off floors and endless hand massages and observing lots of treatments, whilst I completed my studies. And I think for a lot of people, they don't realise that you don't just get into the big stuff, straight into the skin stuff straight away. It takes time. So
time and hard work.
Yeah, hard work. I always say it's hard work. I think people sometimes look at our industry and think, wow, it's so glamorous and I want to be like that. But it takes time. Over the years, with growing and working with teams, I was lucky enough to work with a wonderful group of therapists for many years and amazing employers where I got to manage and run businesses for them. And that's probably where I really noticed my passion for education. Being able to mentor and train therapists, especially the up and comings of our industry, still going through their studies. That's when I really noticed that, this is what I love to do. And from there, it was a natural progression when it was time for me to do something different. I was lucky enough to get an opportunity with InSkin, which is who I'm with now. And I went into a sales role. So from in a salon perspective, I went to actually first a customer experience and then sales role. And again, that's where I started to implement my love for supporting and mentoring people. And then, over the years, managed to make my way through. And now I'm very, very privileged to be the National Education Manager, where I can really develop not only industry professionals, but our internal team. And yeah, for me, it's really where my heart lies, I guess, in training and education.
Incredible. And it must be so rewarding being in education, isn't it? Knowing that you're nurturing the future generations of therapists.
It is. That's what I really love. One thing that I always remember, and it still stays with me to this day, is I used to look up to my predecessors and even Marie back in the day, and I used to listen to them when they would train and educate, and I used to look at them with such awe and just say, wow, I wish I could do that. I wish I could be that person. And yeah, with hard work and dedication, it's paid off. And I'm, happy to say that I'm loving doing it too.
Amazing. For those of our listeners who haven't met you before, Michelle, you've been with InSkin obviously for quite some time and a very pivotal part of the team. What originally drew you to work with InSkin, and more specifically Ginger and me, who we'll be talking about a little later on?
InSkin Cosmetics, a big part of that is the founder or the CEO of InSkin Cosmetics, which is Marie-Edna Coccioloni, which most people know. And I guess her passion for the industry and the people in it, that really connected me to the company, to her and to the brands. And then when Ginger and Me was launched, it basically encompassed everything that I love. It allowed me to work on not just the skin science side of things, but also the people, the experience, the other elements of our industry that I think sometimes gets left behind, which is the experience in clinic, the mental awareness, the stress management. So it really allowed me to tie all of that together and share that love and that passion through Ginger and Me.
Yeah, beautiful. So Ginger and Me is already considerably well known throughout industry, particularly for its mindfulness meditation treatments. I've had this beautiful, luxurious facial before. Lots of you might be able to recognize it with the beautiful headset on the client while their mask is on and they get to listen to a beautiful guided meditation. It's very indulgent and for some clients life-changing, but there is quite a medical cosmetic side to the brand, isn't there, that people are a little bit less familiar about. So can you tell us more about this side of the brand?
Yes, so true. Ginger and Me, I guess, was really springboarded into our industry with the mindfulness meditations. And as you said, at the headphones, we're known for that headphones treatment and meditation. And it really, I guess, took and sort of made its mark during 2020. When the pandemic started, because we found that the industry and our partners were really going back. And I say going back because I feel like it's an area that, was always there, but kind of got left behind a little bit as the industry started to progress with, actives and big clinical treatments. And the need for nurturing and stress management and mental and emotional awareness came back during 2020. And I think that's where Ginger and Me really found its place. But you're right, there is another side to Ginger and Me, which I think people not necessarily overlook, but probably forget because of the huge impact of the mindfulness meditation. And that is still skin focused and skin based. When Marie creates anything under the InSkin Cosmetics portfolio, it's skin first. It's always skin first. She was lucky that she was able to create and develop a range that brought what the industry loves and wants, which is active, functional skincare that gives you results, that gives you that skin change, but combine it with that mindfulness meditation element. So I'd probably say it was a little bit ahead of its time because it really brought together that modern day person, the person who wants results now, the person who wants simplicity, but is also stressed, time poor, and of course, surrounded by all these environmental factors.
Yes, that's so true. And I think a lot of practitioners still believe wellness and mindfulness and all of those concepts and results-driven, hard-hitting cosmeceutical category to be mutually exclusive, whereas they really, really can in a lot of ways be combined together.
Oh, they absolutely can. They absolutely can. And I think now more than ever, and this is probably where we're seeing the success with Ginger Me, is people don't have time. They want results now, but they want the experience. They want to be nurtured. They want to be, looked after. They want that moment of, mental peace, so to speak, while they're in clinic. And if you think back to the saying, we're skin therapists, but we've also always been that kind of therapist as well to our clients and our patients. And Ginger Me does that beautifully, allows us to keep that skin focused, results driven treatment at the forefront, but also nurture that on the side as well.
100%. And that has never been more relevant to us than right now when the world is so chaotic. So, let's talk a little bit about the concept of neuroaging. So this, I guess, is one of the kind of core concepts of Ginger and Me. So why don't you tell us exactly what neuroaging is and what it means to you and to the Ginger and Me brand?
Well, this is the fun part. This is where we start getting to the technicals now. So neuroaging is really about taking it right back when it comes to looking at skin health. Everything we do is about skin health and making sure the skin is working the way it once was, or working the way it should be. And with neuroaging specifically, we're talking about cellular health and more directly with cell-to-cell communication. When our cells and their receptors and their nerve endings are damaged, they're not able to function properly, which essentially means they don't communicate properly. And we know when it comes to cell-to-cell communication, if that communication is damaged or if there are mixed messages being sent through, we know that that is going to have a direct impact on how our cells function and their processes that they should be doing. So neuroaging and Ginger Me is really about taking steps backwards in what we're doing and going to the core, making sure that our cells can communicate effectively so that everything we do is going to work the way it should.
Amazing. And that's really the basis of what we're trying to achieve as skin therapists, isn't it? I think it's so easy to get excited and distracted by all of the amazing new technologies and ingredients out there, but that really should be our core focus, really just, I guess, promoting healthy cell function and just optimizing those anatomical structures and functions that are already in place for us that just tend to slow down or start to deteriorate over time as we age. The key to getting our skin optimal.
Yeah, and it's an important thing to note and remember, because I think sometimes as therapists, we become so focused on what we're visually seeing. So we tend to focus on just the pigmentation or the rosacea, the acne and the redness, and we target those conditions quite directly. And we forget that a part of that means that there is something malfunctioning in the background, that cells aren't communicating, that those nerve endings, those receptors, like you said, aren't working optimally to their peak. So it's really going right down to the root of the problem and the concern.
Absolutely. And I guess it also comes down to preventative measures, doesn't it? Because it's also much easier to, address problems before they occur than it is to address them after you're already seeing signs. So, yeah, I guess why don't we talk a little bit about what are the signs of neuroaging, essentially? I mean, I guess it comes down to cellular functions not functioning optimally, as we said. So I guess there can be lots of signs, of symptoms as well, whether it be inflammation or otherwise.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the thing is, the signs aren't new. The signs are all the things that we've seen over the years. As I mentioned, it is that inflammation, it's that impaired barrier, and then extending to specific skin conditions like pigment and acne. But especially when we look at cell health, like you said, it's the foundation of what we need to do. So when our cells, when our receptors aren't talking to one another, the initial thing that we start to see is that inflammation, is that oxidative stress, is the way the skin is affected by the environmental changes. We're even seeing skins now, or people even more so, becoming vitamin D deficient more and more so because of being aware of sun exposure and being great with sun protection. So like supporting your vitamin D receptors internally without having sun exposure, so to speak, is really important. So it's going back to sort of the forgotten heroes, the little receptors and nerve endings that make our cells function so well.
Yes, and that's a great example because vitamin D is extremely important when it comes to healthy cellular communication.
Absolutely, the target with Ginger and Me as well.
Amazing. Yeah, so tell us a little bit more about that, I guess, how Ginger and Me specifically targets neuroaging, or what are some techniques or active ingredients that you tend to incorporate into products to, kick cell health into gear and kind of renew and re-solidify those cell functions?
Yeah, well, Ginger and Me Neurocosmetics is based on what we call an ACD approach. And this ACD approach targets with every single product in the range. So the range is actually quite a nice boutique range. So it's quite simplified, which is nice. And all the products within the range target this ACD approach. And within this, we target with the A, the anti-inflammatory, the antioxidant, anti-aging and anti-pollution. With the C, we're really looking at the fibroblasts and the prevention and the support of collagen and elastin synthesis. And then with cell detoxification and skin barrier, we're really making sure again that all these nerve endings and structures are working to help support cell detoxification, support the vitamin D receptor and reinforce that barrier.
It goes without saying, Ginger and Me offers serious skin solutions, adopting next-generation technology and functional actives. Based on the concept of neurocosmetics, Ginger and Me works on a cosmetic medicine level to counteract two significant modern-day skin disruptors: stress and neuroaging triggered by inflammation. Australian-made, owned and loved, Ginger and Me embraces the holistic concept of skin, mind and body, with mindfulness meditations as well as clinical spa treatment solutions. If you'd like to experience the Ginger and Me difference and see how it can work in your salon, spa or skin clinic, contact the team at InSkin Cosmetics to receive a personalised presentation with treatment recommendations based purely on your unique business offerings. Email team@inskincosmetics.com or call 029712 8188.
And the way we do this with that ACD approach is with our 3 key ingredients. And these 3 key ingredients are found throughout the range. The first one, which is the neurodefense complex, which is really about that cell-to-cell communication and supporting those nerve endings, making sure that that phone line, should you call it, is connecting and making those calls through. Then we also have Verderine and Pristinizer. Now, these 3 ingredients are the core of the range, and that's really what's supporting all of those elements, making sure that those inflammatory nerve endings, that the cell is able to support itself, that the cell is able to communicate, so that skin foundation and health is supported.
Amazing. Speaking of, do you have any personal favourite ingredients that you love to work with? Or I know you're going to hate this question, but do you have any favourite Ginger and Me products from the range?
Being a boutique range, it is really hard to choose one range or one product. But if I have to choose one at the moment, it would be the Skin Balm collection, and in particular, the Bright. So our newest addition to the Ginger and Me family are a collection of 4 skin balms, and they're beautifully luxurious, melting moment type of skin balms that are 100% plant-based. And we've got a collection of 4. There's the Clear Skin Balm, the Bright Skin Balm, Protect, and then Lift. So they're a beautifully soft, luxurious balm that you can use in the evening or in the morning. And you just wake up and your skin just feels and looks radiant and glowing. And of course, without sacrificing on results,
They sound absolutely delightful. I've tried quite a few Ginger and Me products, but not those yet. So I can't wait to get my hands on them eventually. And I think it's, as we said, more important right now than ever before when there's so much chaos happening in the world. We're all feeling extreme heightened levels of stress, a reduced sense of control. So we're going to be seeing in ourselves and our clients and patients more and more cases of inflammation and cell functions that have been affected by that. We're going to be seeing heightened glycation due to elevated cortisol levels. We're going to see more and more impaired barrier functions and impaired cell membranes due to stress and mask wearing. So I think this is absolutely an area that we should all be focusing on right now, because it's not going to be as simple as problematic skin, address it with some salicylic acid. There's going to be some more complex problems that are proliferating from stress hormones and lack of sleep and all of those issues that kind of stem from the way of the world. So yeah, I think it's an incredibly important conversation that we're having at the moment.
That's a really good point, Marla, that you mentioned. And it's probably something that I'm noticing more and more every day about how skins are changing. And even within our partners in our clinics who have Ginger Me or multiple brands in their clinic, we're really seeing a shift in the way therapists are having to treat skins at the moment. And this is where I'm seeing Ginger Me really flourish, because skins have changed a lot in the last 2 years. And a big part of that is exactly what you mentioned, that additional stress, all those inflammatory markers being triggered. Skins are a lot more unpredictable, more so now than ever. And therapists are really having to peel back their approach and look at these foundations, look at how the skin is functioning, how are these cells communicating. And I'm finding, I'm getting more and more questions every day. Oh, my client was able to do A, B, and C treatment, 12 months ago, but it's just not coping the same way with that same approach. So they're having to reshift home care regimes, shift treatment approaches. And a lot of these programs are going back to those anti-inflammatory treatments, that antioxidant support, feeding and nurturing the skin with the right ingredients to help strengthen and rebuild them from the ground up, essentially.
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing just the stories that have, as you said, come out of the last 2 years, and there really is a massive shift. So yeah, I guess it's a very exciting concept for Ginger and Me to be specializing in at the moment, when there's such demand for it. There's the need for mindfulness and having that beautiful sense of touch and nurturing with the mindfulness meditation treatment, but it's much more than that, isn't it? So it's approaching that stress reduction element using mindfulness techniques, but at the same time incorporating those key ingredients that are designed to not just make the client feel good, which is very important when it comes to stress reduction, but to also treat the skin very actively with those ingredients that are going to address some inflammatory markers and fight oxidative stress and to combat glycation. So yeah, it's a really exciting kind of twofold approach that you guys specialize in. I know I'm very passionate about it. You're obviously very passionate about incorporating those two elements of skin science, pathophysiology, anatomy, and skin function with the mindfulness concept. Do you have any other areas of interest that you also love to incorporate in there? I know we've talked a little bit about how the importance of antioxidants. It's a very big area of focus when it comes to high levels of stress. We need to combat those free radicals that we're inducing with all of that stress with antioxidants. So do you have a kind of passion for nutrition and internal skin health as well?
Absolutely. And the thing with our industry, at the forefront, I think for most therapists, it's always skin first and skin results first, which is why functional actives are so important. Stress, mental and emotional awareness, we've spoken about, and we do that well with Ginger and Me. But all round, I think for therapists and business owners at the moment, it's really important to listen to our clients and listen to what their needs are, what their wants are, because I think it's really easy when we're passionate about what we do to look at what we think a client needs and what we think a client needs for their skin, but listening to your clients, listening to what they want. So when it comes to that stress management, when it comes to the experience, for me is a very important element when it comes to clinical treatments, which ties in that stress, but also absolutely the nutrition. Everything happens from the inside out. So if we're not nurturing our bodies from within, it just doesn't happen. I always say that our faces are the window to the inside of our body. So balancing active ingredients, balancing the experience with emotional and mental management, addressing nutrition and health concerns in this day and age is essential. It should be a primary thought at the forefront of every clinic's sort of offer, because people want everything in one place. They want everything now. So it's important that we can offer that for them.
That's so, so true. It's all about convenience nowadays, isn't it? Unfortunately. Aside from that, why do you think it's so important for us as practitioners to continue feeding in all of those different elements of mental health, physical nutrition, and proper skin actives and a good routine? Why do you think it's so important for us to continue feeding those into what we do as a holistic approach, as opposed to approaching them separately?
They're all links, aren't they? I think it's like a circle chain or a bracelet almost. That's kind of how I envisage it. And each area of that is part of strengthening the cycle. And if there is a weakness in one area, or if a chain or a link is broken, you're not going to get that end result. So yes, you can do skin really well. Yes, you can do relaxation or mindfulness or meditation very well. But if you're not acknowledging, and it's important, as skin therapists, we're not trained, nutritionists or naturopaths, but I think we need to have, at least an overview understanding of how different deficiencies like your key omegas and your zincs, and how different health conditions can affect the skin. Because when there is a broken link, if we're not at least addressing them or supporting them by directing them to professionals in that industry when it comes to nutritional health needs, we're kind of fighting an uphill battle, aren't we? Because when things are in balance, we're just not going to get the results. And that's probably a big thing that I see in the industry. Therapists will be putting all the right ingredients in place. They'll have the best prescriptions in place, the best programs, and they just don't understand why they're not getting results. So making sure that you're acknowledging the nutrition, the stress. Are there any triggers, especially when it comes to stress, because it increases, like you mentioned, the inflammatory markers. And if those things are constantly battling or imbalanced, then you're going to be fighting an uphill battle. You're not going to get the results that you expect. So yeah, very, very important.
Absolutely right. Yeah, so true. It's such a good point, the fighting an uphill battle, because that's really what it can come down to, isn't it? And as you said, we don't have to be experts or start offering advice that is outside our scope of practice. But at least if we can bring some awareness and education into our clients or our patients' lives around the different effects of those various elements, then I guess it's also about setting realistic expectations, because if we're doing all of the right things and a client or a patient is really non-compliant at home or in other areas of their lives, if they have a horrendous diet or if they suffer from chronic stress or ongoing anxiety, then it will be good for them to understand why they're receiving all of these beautiful and often very costly treatments and skincare protocols that just aren't working because they're getting undone by those other elements of life that are fighting against it from the inside. So I think for me, that's why it's so important for us to just educate our clients on why a broad scope holistic approach can be so important, especially when it comes to fighting a specific problem or a skin condition that's based on systemic inflammation, from rosacea to perioral dermatitis, for example.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I think that's all we have time for today, Michelle. It's been such a pleasure, as always, to talk to you. Any final words of wisdom or advice for our listeners that you wanted to share with us today?
When it comes to wisdom and advice, I think I'll go back to talk to your clients, listen to clients. I think, find out what they're needing. And I think more often than not these days, people are looking for results as well as that nurturing mindfulness element. So don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to put yourself on the line maybe, and ask your clients about what they need, what they would love to see within your clinic and space.
So important. Thank you so much, Michelle, and thank you everyone for joining us. Take care, and we hope that we will see you all again soon.
Thanks so much, Marla. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
You've reached the end of another episode of the Beauté by ABIC podcast, your online support community for the aesthetic and beauty industry. Thank you for listening, and until next time, stay connected.